Could have been worse. All right, guys, today we're going to get back into some more chords. And this is sort of a part of my beginning guitarist primer. I'm trying to point y'all in the right direction as best I can. Last week we talked about, or well, I don't know if it was last week or maybe it could have been several weeks ago depending on when this video was posted, but last time we talked about just the basic shape of an A chord. And we tried to get y'all into sort of the rhythmy mode of just listening to it against some music to kind of hear, especially in like rock and blues and just all this kind of power chordish sounding things, to sort of learn what it sounds like and to kind of chug along a little bit with a record to kind of get some rhythmic things going. We also discussed briefly a little bit about bar chords and transposing those A forms to higher registers. We're going to do the same thing, but this time we're going to do it with an E chord, okay? An E chord is kind of the staple of a guitar. Once you learn how to play guitar, when you pick up a guitar, you're going to immediately hit an E chord. It's just what we do. It's just what we do. It's the guitar language thing that everyone just gravitates to. I don't know why, but it's just what we do. Now, E chord. This is probably one of the most important chords you'll probably ever learn on a guitar. It's a little bit difficult compared to the A. It's not difficult, but we're speaking beginner speak here. I'm just trying to baby y'all a bit here. An E chord has the same first three notes as the A chord in terms of the way it's held down, but the third is back here. Then you have your B and your E. Now this chord, unlike the A, where you don't want to play the high E and the low E with an A, like we showed you. With an E chord, you can play the entire thing. You get a nice, full, rich sound, a nice big open chord. Okay? You have an E, you have a B, you have an E. So one thing you're learning here, what you've already learned, you've already discovered what an octave is and you just don't know it yet. An octave is when the note is basically 12, I guess you would say, semitones higher. Okay? It's the same note, but it's just higher. That's also an E. So in that chord, you're actually playing three different E notes, all at different registers of the guitar, different octaves. When you played your A chord, you're also playing two A notes. So what you're learning there, what you've already learned, is you've learned an octave. And we'll get over that, we'll get on that later, like octaves and how they're important on guitar and how they can help you find your ways on the neck and discover notes on the neck and things like that. But I just want to sort of integrate that into this lesson on the E chord, because there are more, just because you're playing an E chord, you're also playing multiple E's within that chord, E notes, individual notes. And we'll get over that in time. Okay, so this is the nut. So all of the bass pitch of our strings is basically actuated at the nut. That's the best way to think about it. So see, if I play these strings open, and that's how they're tuned. That's the constant. Whatever is being essentially fretted at the nut is what is always going to ring out if it's not held down or muted. So that's the best way to think about it. So if we play an E chord, we have the luxury of just knowing that chord's there. It's always there. If you hold down those three notes, the rest of it's there. If you want to transpose that, you make what you call a bar chord. Now, remember how we showed you the A? And then remember how in the last lesson we talked about, and if you haven't seen that lesson, go over and check it out. Remember when we talked about if you wanted to experiment around with bar chords, but you're having trouble isolating the root note on the A string, we told you to just go on and just and go over the whole thing, well, guess what? We were already priming you for the next step of our, the next stage of our learning experience here. Because you now already know what it takes to make a complete bar over the strings. Okay. This is where it's going to get a little bit harder. Now, this is a bit of a challenge for a new guitarist is to learn bar chords because they require the use of your pinky. And it's easy to get frustrated when you don't have the pinky strength. Practice it, practice it, practice it. And I'm going to show you. Before, when we showed you that A, let's say that you're making that A bar chord. You're isolating the low E like I told you to. Don't hit it. All right, that's our A bar shape from the last lesson. But I've already barred the entire position. You know that E chord shape that we showed you. You'll simply make that shape here. And now you've transposed it to a higher key. It's the same shape. That's a G. That's an A. This is the E bar chord shape for what you made last week here. They sound slightly different from one another. So work on that E. Work on that A. I want you to practice going between those chords like this. Don't worry about what it sounds like. Don't worry about making a song out of it. Just practice catching those chords clean and switching between them and picking them. Okay, there's an E. That sounds nice. All right, now this is why it's good to learn these two chords to start out with, in my opinion, because when we go to the A, now look, I'm going to make a deliberate mistake. I played all these strings on the E chord. I'm going to play all the strings on the A chord and show you how bad it sounds. You wouldn't do that, right? You don't want to hit the low E. You only want to hit the A root note. You don't want to hit the high E. So I want you to get into the action of going. Switch between those two chord shapes to where they feel second nature to you. Okay? Then work on the bar chords. The E bar chord is going to be a tough one. It's going to take you a while. When you're first starting out, it's very difficult to get that pinky to go where you want. So to make an E bar chord again, bar all the way across. Ring finger here. Pinky finger on the octave. This finger on the third, that makes it major, by the way, and then your finger here is already barred across. Work on catching that clean. A lot of people, and remember, it's hard for me to do this because I've been doing it so long, I just pick it up and hitting these chords can be second nature a lot of times, but a lot of people will, let's see if I can sort of, I can't really do it. But if you don't make an effort to arch your hand and to provide a legitimate, kind of a deliberate arch in the chord shape, you're not going to hear all the notes. Your fingers are going to come in contact with the strings because remember, the strings have to ring under my hand, right here. The notes I'm actually fretting are right here in that chord. So it means that to make that ring out, I've got to have an arch that allows all of those notes to ring out. So even if you're not working on rhythmic stuff, or even if you're not trying to learn a song, work on catching those chords clean. Okay? Move them up the neck. You can take that shape, you can move it anywhere on the neck by simply changing the root note. Right? Eventually, we'll discuss what those notes are and how they interact with each other and things you should and shouldn't do, and talking about different passages and things that you can do with different chords. But for now, work on the E chord. You've already learned the A. Now right hand stuff, if you'd like. With the right hand technique, get used to making those chord shapes. And if you want, you can strum them a little bit. You know, get to the I'm just kind of strumming those chords, but I'm just going between E and A. Very, very, very simple. Super, super simple. All right? And if you want to work on, instead of the strummy type things, work on picking those notes out and work on isolating on your A chord, making sure that you're not hitting the low E and make sure you're not hitting the high E string. Even though you're holding it down, that's an F sharp I'm holding down. Even though you're holding it down, you don't want to hit it. One way you can isolate that, working on your right hand technique, is to just practice going. And it sounds sloppy the way I'm doing it because it's a very foreign thing to, to just pick those things in that way without having a structure to it. So I'm not suggesting playing it exactly like I'm playing it or to copy that picking pattern. I'm just saying by isolating the strings and picking out the notes in the chord, you are learning to isolate individual strings and how they sound within that chord. And that's part of developing your ear and developing part of the theory that we're going to talk about later. So again, very quickly, your E chord. Again, providing a bit of an arch in your hand to allow those high strings to ring out. Bar chord in this F position is very hard because the frets are the furthest apart. It's the largest part of the neck. This is the hardest bar chord to make. The hardest position to make a bar chord is in the F position. That's good practice. If you want to practice that, practice going like this. That's tough. It's hard to do when you're a beginning guitarist, but you're basically pretend that you're taking, just listen to this. I know it's not going to make a lot of sense, but I want you to listen. Take this E chord, and we're going to raise it. That actually has a cool sound to it. But if I'm raising this, well, see now these open strings, that doesn't sound right. I have to raise the pitch of those open strings 1 fret to reflect the fret I had to move that shape up. So that's the best way to explain a bar chord. You want to go to G, you go to G. Want to go to A, go to A. Want to go to C, go to C. So now, when you learn those bar chords on both strings, the A shape, and the E shape, you can start to pick apart some just basic songs. Okay, and what we're going to dive into, I think in the next lesson, we're going to go over some minor chords and ways that you can take what we're doing here and turn them into minor chords. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at how that's accomplished. And you'll find that once you build the hand strength to do those basic chords in those positions, and you work on your rhythm a little bit, work on your right hand technique, you'll find that with the next shapes I'm going to show you, you're going to be pointed in absolutely the right direction to start playing a wide variety of different songs. So thanks for watching today's lesson. We hope you learned something. Work on that a little bit. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll try to help you as best I can. Guys, we make these videos for free. We don't make a dime off these videos. If you guys enjoyed this and you learned something, consider donating $1 on Patreon. We work for tips. We do have a tip jar, just saying. If not, that's fine too. We're here to make you guys happy. We want you to have the content you want. So let us know what you want to see. We will have more basic lessons as well as some more advanced stuff coming out in future videos. So let us know what you think, and we'll see you guys next time. Work on that, and we'll see you next time and get into some different stuff. We'll see you.